Our friendship is seminal and historic.
A video call ends Somaliland's decades-long isolation, Israel becoming the first country to recognize the breakaway region of Somalia. But that's angered Mogadishu as well as African and Arab states. Why are they upset, and how will it affect politics and security in the region? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Adrian Finighan. A diplomatic breakthrough after more than 30 years of international isolation following its breakup from Somalia. But Israel's recognition of Somaliland as an independent state is drawing widespread condemnation. The African Union, the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation have joined several countries, including Egypt and Turkey, in rejecting Israel's decision. And Somalia is calling the move an attack on its sovereignty. Somaliland is strategically located near the Bab al Mandeb, through which a third of the world's shipping crosses into the Red Sea. That makes it vital for maritime security and intelligence operations in a volatile region. So will more countries follow Israel and recognize Somaliland? And how will Israel's decision impact the politics of the Middle East? We'll raise those questions with our guests shortly. But first, a report from Amaboteng.
Mr. President.
Mr. Prime Minister.
It's good to talk to you.
Israel's Prime Minister congratulates Somaliland's president, with Benjamin Netanyahu calling Israel's recognition of Somaliland seminal and historic.
Of course, I'll communicate to President Trump your willingness and desire to join the Abraham Accords. So thank you, Mr. President. Please convey my best regards and the best regards of the people of Israel to the independent people of Somaliland.
Somaliland has been pushing for international recognition for decades, and Israel is the first country to recognize the breakaway region of Somalia.
After more than 3 decades of peaceful self-governance, constitutional order and democratic practice, Somaliland has received its first formal international recognition as a sovereign and independent state. I express my wholehearted appreciation to the State of Israel for its brave decision.
Somaliland declared itself a republic in 1991 during Somalia's civil war. It lies in the Horn of Africa along the Gulf of Aden. That's a significant maritime route used by nearly a third of the world's container traffic. The African Union and countries in the region, including Egypt, Sudan and Saudi Arabia, have condemned Israel's move, calling it a dangerous precedent. Somaliland says the criticism does not reflect the reality on the ground. The UN Security Council is to hold an emergency session on the development in the coming days. Amaboteng, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
So let's bring in our guests. Adam Matan is an independent Horn of Africa consultant. He joins us from London. Alon Pinkas is a former ambassador and consul general of Israel in New York. He joins us from Tel Aviv. And Xavier Abu-Aid is a political scientist specialising in Palestine and Israel. He joins us from Ramallah. Gentlemen, a warm welcome to you all. Adam, let's start with you. Somalia has called this decision a deliberate attack on its sovereignty that would undermine regional peace. As we heard, the African Union says it risks setting a dangerous precedent with far-reaching implications for peace and stability across the continent. Are they right?
I think they're absolutely right. I think this is a move that the Somali government was not expected. And also, if I just give you a context, even the issues of Somaliland is Somaliland itself, or the British protectorate Somaliland, is divided into two communities, the Unionists and the Secessionists. And even at the local level, without the geopolitical issues, without the international dynamics, even this sets a dangerous precedent for local communities locally, because it could lead into violence, it could lead to a fragmentation of social cohesion. So in all aspects, in all honesty, these assessments and those views are correct. It sets a dangerous precedent. It's a direct threat and violation of Somalia's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Alon, what are Israel's motives here? Is this a decision driven by security interests, particularly maritime security in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, rather than diplomatic principle, or is something else at play here?
No, you're absolutely right, Adrian. I think the ostensible explanation or justification is strategic. The Horn of Africa has become more strategic than ever. It controls both the tip of the Gulf of Aden, but also, more importantly, the Bab al Mandeb Strait. Israel sees that as having three strategic benefits, meaning the recognition. A, monitoring maritime or protecting maritime routes. By the way, parenthetically, I don't know how Israel intends to do that, because certainly Israel is not going to set up a naval base in Berbera, but that's beside the point right now. Secondly, monitoring the Houthis, which are right across the strait in western Yemen. And thirdly, it's a form of encirclement. Strategy. Israel has an improved relationship with Azerbaijan, which has a lengthy border with Iran, and now recognizes Somaliland down south in the Horn of Africa. So supposedly, from a strategic point of view, Israel explains that this has to do with some kind of creating an envelope of allies around an axis of terrorism. These are the official explanations, at least.
Xavier, what's your view on this? As we heard at the beginning of the programme, the African Union, the Arab League, the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation, along with Egypt and Turkey, have rejected this decision. But where does all of this criticism actually take us? On Friday, Somalia demanded that Israel reverse its recognition of Somaliland. It's not going to happen now, is it? Despite so many national and regional blocs condemning this move.
Thank you, Adrian. I think, first of all, no one should believe that Israel recognized Somaliland out of a matter of principles or because they believe on the right to self-determination. I think it's clear that what Israel is seeking is something else. We know that Somaliland was entertaining the idea of being part of the ethnic cleansing process of Palestinians from Gaza. And I also believe that all this regional condemnation deals with the fact that Israel once again is destabilizing the region. And I think that's a very important element to be added. Some people may believe that because of the Abraham Accords, something may happen there. And perhaps for Somaliland, this will be a package, right? It's Israel plus the United Arab Emirates plus Bahrain plus Morocco. And I think also it's important to add that for several countries, and we should see what's happening, for example, with Cyprus, with Greece, historical allies of Palestine, to have relations with Israel means sometimes to get closer to the United States. So I think for Somaliland, acting at this stage almost as a mercenary state of Israel is something that they believe is going to pay off 34 years after their so-called independence that no one had recognized.
Adam, from Somaliland's perspective, what does recognition by Israel actually deliver for it? Legitimacy, security cooperation, economic investment, perhaps a foot in the door with other international partners. Could it somehow strengthen Somaliland's long-running case for international recognition, or is this purely going to harden resistance among African and Arab states?
I think a bit of both. I think from a Somaliland's perspective, they have been seeking independence for the last 34 years since they declared their self-declaration from the Union in Somalia. So from their perspective, this will lead or will have a domino effect, and other countries will follow suit to recognize Somaliland. That's what they placing their hope on. And I don't know if that will work. I don't know if many countries will follow this Israelis' footstep of these announcements. And honestly, I don't know if it will change anything on the ground. I don't see any Israeli strategic investment in the region. I don't see a military base and development that the Israeli or the recognition will bring to the region. Generally, I don't see that happening anytime soon. In all honesty,
Alon,
but
picking up. Oh, sorry,
what I
sorry,
see
Adam. Continue. Please continue.
What I see is a complete fragmentation of our communities, of our society, and our region, and also creating a frictions amongst the Somalis. It's already a fragile state. Somalia has been going through a process of rebuilding its state for the last 15 years or so, and this pushes back all of the efforts that has been put place over the last 15 years or so.
Alon, picking up on what Adam was just saying then, what you were saying a few moments ago, Israel facing widespread international condemnation for its move. Is that criticism, do you think, purely about Somaliland itself, or perhaps about concerns over Israel's broader foreign policy calculations? I mean, there is the argument that Israel is looking for new allies, seeking out new allies as it faces growing isolation elsewhere. Is that what this is all about?
No, I have to say that I agree 100% with Adam Matan and what he said about the raising questions and doubts and being skeptical about Israel's strategic interests. Ostensibly, I mentioned what Israel's strategic interests are. I don't think this has anything to do with legitimacy for Somaliland. Certainly not a successful search for allies for Israel. I mean, Somaliland is not that important, no disrespect, that Israel needs it as some kind of an ally rather than improve its relations with China, India, Western Europe, or other countries. All that being said and established, I think the underlying logic here is to turn the port of Barrera into some kind of a launching pad against the Houthis. This is where it begins. This is where it ends. I don't think there's any other motive here. Israel has enough legitimacy problems in Africa, enough legitimacy problems throughout the Arab world, enough legitimacy or strife with Western Europe that it should really concentrate there, rather than this Somaliland thing. Now, as for your remark, Adrian, one last thing I'd like to add here about this from a Somaliland perspective, this perhaps could be leading to some kind of a recognition by America or some kind of consideration by the U.S. Just look at what President Trump said, in his bombastic style. What is Somaliland? I've never heard of Somaliland. Where is Somaliland? I don't care about Somaliland. I don't recognize Somaliland. So that sums it up.
Okay, Xavier, what do you make of what Alon was just saying? I mean, how big a moment is this really? Israel formally recognizes Somaliland as an independent state. Does that fundamentally alter the status quo across the Horn of Africa and across the Middle East? Is this anything other than symbolic rather than seismic?
I don't think it's entirely symbolic. If we look at the region itself, let's remember that Israel, the closest country to Israel in this area is Ethiopia, that doesn't have access to the sea. They reach an agreement with Somaliland for the use of their access to the sea in order to have a better access than the one they had from Djibouti before. So I think for Israel, they are trying perhaps to create a sort of a group of friends in this area. Now, I think the question for Somaliland, what are they going to be gaining? I do believe that for Somaliland, this should be the beginning of something. And I do believe that they have negotiated something around the lines of joining the Abraham Accords. And this would include some sort of a recognition or semi-recognition by the US. Let's remember also that Somaliland has some missions, not diplomatic missions, but has missions abroad. They issue visas, for example, in countries like Djibouti or Ethiopia in order to enter their country or their territory. So therefore, I think they are trying to gain diplomatic standing, but we should also remember that Somaliland is historically part of Somalia. Somaliland is part of the Arab or Muslim world, and there is an overall position against this step. So I think it's not going to work for them to be isolated from the rest of the Muslim world.
Adam, a couple of questions for you. How might al-Shabaab try to exploit this?
Adrian, before I just move on to that, I just wanted to add one point on the comments that my colleagues made. One is Israel could have gained a launching pad if that's the ultimate goal, to fight against the Houthis anywhere in the region. I think they could get that easily. I think that there could be a money partners that they could have talking to. They could have gains. Even they could use Berbera as a launching pad without announcing this official and recognition. So therefore, money commentators in the region are actually saying this is not the Israelis doing. From an Israelis perspective, honestly, I tried to put myself into their shoes and I couldn't see any interest, any strategic interest, or any things that they can gain from this, apart from potentially placing the Palestinians into Somaliland's territories. That's the only logical things that I could come up with.
Look, we'll come back to the al-Shabaab question in just a moment, but I just want to get Alon's view on what you just heard there.
Look, I think we're, from an Israeli point of view, this entire thing, this entire endeavor, this entire idea is just another way of circumventing the Palestinian issue. Israel's integration in the Middle East, Israel's integration in the Arab world, Israel's recognition amongst the Arabs, Israel's acceptance in the Arab world, and indeed in the Horn of Africa, depends on Israel's relations with the Palestinians. And any way of trying to, engineering reality and forcing all kinds of strategic agreements with Azerbaijan and now with Somaliland and even relations with the UAE and Bahrain and Oman, that's a cheap way out. Until and unless the Palestinian issue is addressed, and I'm not saying there aren't any threats. I'm not saying the Houthis are not a threat. They are a threat. But if the Houthis are such a threat, then why didn't Egypt recognize Somaliland and set up a military base or a naval base there? And so from an Israeli point of view, this is just another way of trying to, redraw the geopolitical map in a way that's not necessarily consistent with reality.
Xavier, feel free to come back on anything that you've heard in the last few minutes, but I wanted to ask you also what this decision by Israel means for its regional relationships, particularly with Ethiopia, Djibouti, and the Gulf states that already have interests themselves in Somaliland, but particularly those that have signed up to the Abraham Accords.
But I would also add Egypt to the list. Egypt also has interests in this region and follows very closely what's happening there, especially after the last problems they've had with Ethiopia and the situation that many Egyptians have considered to be a situation of aggression or threat from Ethiopia against the national security of Egypt through the issue of the water. But I would like to go back to what Alon said, because I think it's very important. Benjamin Netanyahu has been trying to convince Israelis and Israeli allies worldwide that they can continue going ahead without tackling the Palestinian issue, that they can invent any sort of diplomatic relations or agreements anywhere, and that by doing so, they are going to not just bypass Palestinians, but sometimes they say they would make it easier to make peace with the Palestinians. What we know is that after the Abraham Accords, the Israeli position is actually much worse. In order to achieve an agreement with the Palestinians, they have less incentives now to move into a peace agreement with Palestine. And therefore, any step moving towards an extension of the Abraham Accords, it's not in the interest of Palestine or of Israeli-Palestinian peace. And I think that's a very important point that Israelis should actually be paying attention to, that Benjamin Netanyahu once again is trying to play regional politics that may not be as significant as what Palestine actually should be for Israel.
Okay, I can see both Adam and Alon in agreement there. Yes, Alon, please let's please come in.
I just like to reply to that. He's absolutely right. Look, Mr. Netanyahu has this false theory that Israel can achieve regional peace and be integrated into the Middle East without the Palestinian issue. It's as if it never existed. You know, the Palestinians have been transplanted to another planet and what have you. And the Abraham Accords sort of catered to that, I'm sorry for the term idiocy, because it is idiocy. There's no other way of describing this. Then came the Gaza war and basically reshuffled the deck. All of a sudden, the Palestinian issue is front and center of international attention. Perhaps less so today than it was several months ago, but for obvious reasons of, public fatigue in the world. But that's beside the point. There is no way around the Palestinian issue. I'm not here to recommend a solution, 2-state, 1-state, 3-state, different modalities, different sequencing. That's for a different program, obviously. But the idea that Israel can have a relationship with Morocco, a relationship with the Emirates, a relationship with Somaliland, and the big, the Holy Grail, the relationship with Saudi Arabia, and doing all that while ignoring the Palestinian issue, the demographic reality, the political reality, the reality on the ground is just false and is dragging Israel in a very, very dangerous and precarious way.
Okay, I know, Adam, you wanted to get in on that. Please feel free to respond, but I want to bring this back to Somalia in particular, and security, not just in Somalia, but across the Horn of Africa. Does Israel's decision raise the risk of further instability, either inside Somalia itself or across the wider Horn of Africa? And that question I put to you a few minutes ago, how might al-Shabaab, for instance, respond to this?
Absolutely. I don't know if you have seen the statements from al-Shabaab already, calling the Somaliland administration as the infidels, and that their blood are allowed to be split and all sorts of things. So al-Shabaab are already making threats and saying if there is Israeli interest sets foot in Somalia or in parts of the region where they say they are recognizing that al-Shabaab will move their resources to that part of the country to fight against what they call the invading infidels, as they said in their statement. So you're already seeing it. You can already sense the tension is boiling in the region, and even worse than that, locally at local level, there are frictions amongst the communities. There is a strong fuse on both sides, on the unionists and the separatists. And it is the separatists that are currently getting the recognition by the Israeli government. So therefore, there is a strong union. And there are a state within the Somaliland, which is recognized by the federal government of Somalia, called the Northern State or Northeast State, which occupies or controls 50% of what's known Somaliland, British protectorate Somaliland. So therefore, you already can see this is a dead on arrival. And it will create tensions among communities. It will cause insecurities. It will ignite unhealed wounds amongst our local community. So honestly, from somebody who's from Somaliland, or who's from a British protected Somaliland, who's a unionist, I can already see and I can feel the emotions amongst communities locally, where this creates a strong frictions and people wants to take it to extreme levels on both sides of the aisle on this particular issue.
Xavier, given what you've just heard there, has Israel underestimated just how sensitive questions of sovereignty and precedent are in this particular part of Africa? Or do you think it knows full well what it's doing?
To be honest, Adrian, I don't think they are thinking well what they are doing. Just to give you one piece of information, Somalia is about to chair the UN Security Council for the next month. You take this decision 1 week before they do that. I mean, I don't think it's in the interest of Israel. Now, if I were at Somalia's place, I will be bringing up the Palestinian issue every day. I think it's in the interest, though, of Benjamin Netanyahu, his government, to start, having testing balloons here and there to deviate us from the real issue that people are going now in Gaza, basically dying out of hypothermia because Israel is refusing to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. That should be the news now that we have, a storm out there. But now, eventually, we're going to have a couple of days talking about this new relationship between Israel and Somaliland, and I don't think that this should be the real issue.
Alon, I have about 2 minutes left on the program. Israel's worked hard to build relations within Africa over the last few years. Are African governments, do you think, going to continue to see Israel as a valuable strategic partner after this move? Is there a risk that this decision could somehow backfire, particularly if Israel clashes with the African Union on principles of territorial integrity?
Well, I think to a large extent, Adrian, that depends on individual countries' interests. I mean, some have formed or forged good relations with Israel because they thought Israel is some kind of a gateway to America, and to be on America's good side, to be on the U.S.'s good side, you need to go through Israel. And as goes the cliche, the road to Washington goes through Jerusalem.
Okay.
That is not the case anymore. That is not the case anymore. So individual countries may choose differently. I doubt that there's going to be a backlash. I doubt, no disrespect to my distinguished colleagues here, I doubt anyone's going to make a big deal out of this.
I'm sorry to cut you short. A quick final word then from Adam on that.
Absolutely. I think Israel has been trying to build a constructive relationship with the African Union and the continent as a whole for the last decades. And actions like this damages all those goodwills and relationship that has been built. And if Israel has an interest in the region, I think they need to be talking to the official authority of Somalia, which is the federal government of Somalia, and stop this shenanigan of recognizing entities and separatist groups and every clan who wants to be in a state.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. Many thanks indeed for being with us today. I really appreciate it. Adam Matan, Alon Pinkas, and Xavier Abu-Aid. Thanks for watching. You can see the program again at any time by going to the website. That's at aljazeera.com. For further discussion, join us at our Facebook page. You'll find that at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And of course, you can always join the conversation on X, our handle there at AJ Inside Story. From me, Adrian Finighan, and the team here in Doha. Bye for now.